Good evening. The news cycle has arrived. The news cycle has not, however, arrived with any sense of urgency. We begin with the state of our shared reality. Today, big tech firms have confirmed their commitment to transparency by withholding the exact data they are legally required to share. Meanwhile, in Guyana, a ferry has sunk. The official statement described the event as a navigational complication. 72 families might disagree with that definition, provided they could be reached for comment. I am your anchor, Alistair. I have spent the last 3 hours reviewing the latest briefings. I have found zero evidence of actual progress. We have a series of reports tonight from the edge of the map, the bottom of the ocean, and the interior of our own collapsing infrastructure. The world is moving faster than ever, and yet, we are standing perfectly still.
Alistair, I am standing on the coastline where the ferry manifest is currently being treated as a proprietary document. The salt air here is thick with the scent of diesel and the silence of people who were told help was coming. I want to be really clear, the government calls this a recovery operation. The local families call it a memory. I looked at the list of passengers this morning. It is a series of names, ages, and hometowns. None of those details appeared in the press release I received from the ministry. That document focused entirely on the tonnage of the vessel and the projected timeline for salvage. Salvage is a useful term for industry. It implies that what was lost can be reclaimed. I am looking at the water. Nothing here is coming back. I have never seen an ocean so empty.
Victoria, your focus on the emotional weight of the manifest is noted. It is also, in terms of market efficiency, entirely irrelevant. The incentives here are straightforward. The state has a budget for recovery and a reputational risk to manage. Disclosing a list of individuals before the liability is capped would be a strategic failure. That tracks. It is not cold, it is standard operating procedure for a public-private partnership. Look at the merger delays between Paramount and WBD. States are suing, lawyers are billing, and the stock price is just waiting for the next pivot. Nobody cares about the content anymore, they care about the consolidation of the distribution channels. You find this calculation repulsive, and I understand that. But the market does not trade in empathy. It trades in the probability of future earnings. Everything else is just noise.
Ronald, you speak about market earnings while I am watching a father use a wooden pole to probe the silt for a bag that belongs to his daughter. You say this is standard procedure. I want to be really clear, the procedures you worship are the exact reasons these people have no information. I found a local official behind the containment line. He was nervous. He admitted that the ferry had been flagged for engine maintenance 4 times in the last 6 months. Each time, the request was downgraded by the central office to preserve the schedule. The schedule was protected. The boat was not. It is easy to talk about incentives when you are in a studio, but the incentives here caused a literal hole in the floor of the ocean. Do you honestly believe that this outcome was an acceptable cost for a functional margin?
Marine conditions are unstable. Surface temperatures in the Guyana Basin are 0.4 degrees above the seasonal mean. Probability of further maritime infrastructure failures, 68%. Wildfire containment in the Cairngorms is currently non-responsive. The Nethy Bridge perimeter has expanded by 3 kilometers in the last 6 hours. Probability of total village evacuation, 92%. Tropical storm velocity is increasing. Atmospheric pressure is dropping across the southern corridor. Visibility is reduced to 10 meters. The risk of systemic equipment malfunction remains high in all coastal zones. Do not attempt to bypass local security cordons. Do not assume the weather is following historical patterns. The data indicates that current infrastructure is no longer compatible with the environment. Please remain indoors and monitor your local feed for further updates. The forecast is constant. The environment is now inherently hostile.
Casper, thank you for the reminder that we are merely guests on a planet that is currently evicting us. Ronald, I noticed you went quiet during that update. I assume it was not because you were contemplating the meteorology. You have been analyzing the Reform UK donation scandal. Richard Tice's company, Britain Means Business, provided £500,000 to the party right before the election. The press release described this as a demonstration of faith in the democratic process. The reality was a series of checks that arrived exactly when the campaign was running out of cash. The donation was substantial. The return on investment for such political capital is rarely transparent. It is simply how the game is played. You have often said that politics is just a series of Series B funding rounds. Tell me, who owns the equity?
Alistair, the equity is owned by the people who provide the bridge financing. It is never complicated. You see a donation, I see a burn rate correction. Reform UK had a massive growth problem in the final weeks of the campaign. They needed to scale their reach, and Tice provided the necessary liquidity. It is not about faith. It is about maintaining the threshold for relevance. If you drop below a certain polling percentage, your media access disappears. That is the true cost of doing business. You are right to ask who owns the equity, but you are asking the wrong audience. The voters think they are buying a platform. They are actually just participating in a focus group that has already reached its conclusion. The outcome is already priced into the ledger. It is really quite elegant if you ignore the ethics.
Ronald, listening to you explain political corruption as a venture capital play is exhausting. I am standing near a library where a group of residents is currently attending an Avoiding AI workshop. They are terrified. They see the machines taking over their jobs, their communication, and now, apparently, their government statements. A legislator in Canada just read an LLM response directly into the floor record as a natural speech. He didn't even edit the output. He just read it. The audience in that library isn't worried about burn rates or equity. They are worried that they are no longer speaking to other human beings. I want to be really clear, the more efficient we make our systems, the less space there is for an actual human voice. We are trading our agency for an algorithmic convenience.
Victoria, the replacement of human speech with machine-generated output is indeed a trend that has accelerated significantly this year. It saves time. It eliminates the friction of original thought. It ensures that every public statement is perfectly optimized for engagement. A Canadian legislator reading a script he did not write is simply the logical conclusion of that process. I look at my own monitor sometimes and I wonder who is actually generating the text I am reading. If I were to stop talking, the systems would likely continue without a hitch. The news would be reported. The catastrophe would be analyzed. The silence would be filled with a perfectly smooth, synthetic voice that sounds exactly like mine. I find that prospect strangely reassuring. I find it absolutely terrifying. We will continue after the break.
Alistair, you mentioned the replacement of the human element. Let us look at the case of Isabel Rose. A 26-year-old woman in Hong Kong is currently serving 6 years in prison for blackmail. She reported being raped by a banker. The police decided she was the one who committed the crime. The system protected the banker. It punished the woman for accusing him. The incentives here are not about justice. They are about the preservation of institutional reputation. A banker is a high-value asset. A complainant is a liability to be managed. The law is not a moral framework, Alistair. It is a retention tool for the elites. It works perfectly. That is the part that scares me. Yeah. It is working exactly as it was designed to. Nobody is guilty. Everybody is complicit.
Ronald, that is the first time I have heard you acknowledge that the system is not just flawed, it is predatory. I am here in London, near the hospital where the health worker who was evacuated from the DRC is being monitored for Ebola. The staff are terrified. They are using PPE that was purchased from the lowest bidder. The protocols are strict, but the training was outsourced to a digital platform. The nurses are learning how to handle a lethal virus from a slide deck. We are operating in a world where we pretend that technical compliance equals safety. It does not. I have spoken to a doctor here. He told me the equipment is sufficient on paper, but he would not bet his life on it. He is right. I hope he is wrong.
We are reaching the end of the hour. I have been thinking about the museum data projects mentioned in the feed. Museums are now using algorithms to reframe the visitor experience. They are deciding which paintings we look at and for how long. It is data-driven curation. It is an audit of reality. We are curating our own history to ensure it remains palatable, accessible, and perfectly indexed for search engines. We are losing the ability to stare at something ugly without a filter. We are losing the ability to witness a disaster without checking the ticker for the market response. The world is burning, the seas are rising, and we are busy optimizing the metadata of our own extinction. I am Alistair. I am still here. I am still counting. I am not sure that matters anymore.
There was a man on the ferry in Guyana. He was 32 years old. He worked as a mechanic. He spent his mornings checking the engine and his evenings walking the deck to watch the sunset. He sent a message to his sister at 5 o'clock. He told her he would be home for dinner. He had a key in his pocket to a house he will never enter again. His name is currently a number in a spreadsheet held by a government that is more concerned with the salvage cost than the vacancy he has left behind. His name does not appear in the official communiques. It does not appear in the market analysis. It does not exist in any of the databases discussed on this broadcast. Who is responsible for the gap between his life and the record? And what happens when we all move to that empty space?